And welcome into another edition of Monday Night Quarterback, FCS Playoff Preview Edition. The regular season is over, and the Fordham football team is on their way to the playoffs next week. Matt Morrow, Christian O'Hara, and we are pleased to be joined by the head coach of the Fordham football team, Joe Moorhead. Coach, we didn't get a chance to have you on last week. We're glad to have you back at Applebee's.
Yeah, took a little vacation.
Yeah,
Great to be
good.
back.
Did you enjoy it?
Did. How about you?
Not too bad. We still had to go to school and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's okay. Well, you got that bye week that had been missing all season long. Plenty of guys get some rest. I'm sure that was great. But before the bye week, we just have to go over a little bit of the last game of the regular season. Going down to Georgetown on their senior day. It was your last game. Everyone else in the Patriot League still has a game to go. You're still fighting for a chance to get the Patriot League automatic bid to the playoffs. That doesn't work out that way, but you guys take care of business, and you win that final game to end up 9-2. And you and other coaches and players had said to us all week long leading up to that, listen, we have to just take care of our business. We have to approach this game the right way and come out with a win. That's exactly what happened. What did you think of the effort and performance from your squad against Georgetown?
No, I think under the circumstances, our kids did a tremendous job, preparing, going out, playing with great effort, and executing our scheme, and understanding the magnitude of the game and the scenarios as they played out. That essentially we had to win the game or our season was over, and particularly for our seniors and our leaders and the guys who've been the builders of this program, to come out under those circumstances and to win the game we needed to win, like we've done all season, find a way to get it done. It was a testament to our players, our coaches, and quite frankly to our culture.
Coach, you go down 7-0, I believe, early in the game, and is there any, I don't want to say doubt, but, is there any in your mind, oh, here we go again, because teams had been able to kind of move the ball, at least on that opening possession, the last couple games of the season here?
Yeah, no, zero doubt.
Mm-hmm.
There's, things on both sides of the ball and special teams, obviously, that we need to continue to work on and clean up, but, I think it was a situation where we didn't have a lot of guys on the team who had played in a game of that magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
We had a few seniors that have played in some very critical games with the season on the line, per se. And I don't think that we were flat or we weren't ready to play. I just think there were some guys, quite frankly, that were a little bit nerved up. And I think once we got those first couple of series out of the way, we got our feet underneath us and started to play a little bit more of a complete game.
Because Matt and I did feel the energy pregame. We felt
it was palpable.
Right,
absolutely.
Right, exactly. Crisp concentration.
Yeah.
That was part of the week, correct?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So coming into this game, you knew Georgetown was going to present you with some challenges that maybe in years past the Georgetown squad hadn't. They had a much improved season. You were very familiar with their head coach, Rob Scarlata. What challenges coming in did they present that ultimately you guys were able to say, you know what, we knew this was going to be a challenge and we did a good job against it?
Yeah, Rob's done a very good job, and obviously the biggest component for them, offensively was Kyle Nolan, the quarterback, and he certainly didn't disappoint. Well, at least for Georgetown fans, he didn't. Had a good day throwing the ball, did some things running around, like we talked about, being able to create plays within the construct of the offense, and obviously, making some plays, scrambling and finding people downfield, which he did. Justin Hall didn't play because of injury, and Joel Campello didn't play. I thought their backups, I think it was Vallis and number 23.
Mm-hmm.
The other kids stepped in and did a good job, but we jumped out in front 28-7, and I think the turning point of the game, not to jump off topic, but was that long return. And I think the things we needed to do, stop the run and control Nolan, I think we did them well. I think we gave up too many points, but I think we did a good job getting off the field in critical situations.
You mentioned the long return on their side, and the reason they go up 7-0 is because Jihad Pretlow, who's been so good for you guys returning kicks, has a little bit of trouble fielding the first kick. They get great field position after you guys are backed up, and he has trouble with the second one. But one of the next turning points after they had come back and timed that game, Jihad Pretlow set you guys up on the winning drive with a great kick return. So just to talk about that for a second, what was the thinking of trusting Jihad and leaving him out there to keep doing what he'd done all season long, and how important was that return to set up, later drives in the game and being able to go back on top?
Yeah, I mean, that's special teams giveth, special teams taketh away. But, Jihad's been one of the best returners in the country and one of the top returners in the conference, and, made a bad error in judgment on the first one, and it cost us some critical field position there early in the game and, led to the 7 early points. And, it's just when you have guys that you're confident in and they've done it at a high level throughout the season. We actually gave Corey an opportunity to return one of the kicks, and he did a good job. But, when you have an athlete of Jihad's caliber and he's done it, throughout the season, you got to remain confident in him, give him another opportunity. And, for the negative things that happened with some of those plays early on, that return setting us up for field position on that last touchdown was a huge part of the win.
And I think if you look at it from an overall standpoint on the offensive side of the ball, again, Kevin doing a great job kind of commanding the guys, especially after, Jihad, brings that ball back. What do you see in him, on a week-to-week basis that gives you, makes you feel comfortable in a late situation like that?
No, that Kevin's going to play as he prepares, and he does a fantastic job, and that aspect of the game is critically important to him, and he treats it as such that he realizes he's going to play as he practices, and he takes the mental part with Coach Briner and the physical part very seriously, and that's when you don't rise to the level of your opponent. You follow the level of your preparation, and then as the season's gone on, Kevin's continued to make better and better decisions, and most importantly in critical situations. So, he's a guy that's had a tremendous season, he's made a great throw to Faison there on that last drive and made some critical throws throughout the game. So when you have one of the top quarterbacks in the country, you have to feel good about it.
Kevin's had a great year. He's also had a great running back beside him in Chase Edmonds, but Chase was unable to finish this game. Jared Brevard came in and scored the winning touchdown. We asked you a little bit about it earlier in the week, but just to ask about it again, how pumped was everybody when Jared is the guy who starts the year as a third-string running back to get the winning touchdown in the final game of the regular season?
No, the kids were incredibly excited, and once again, I think it speaks to our team's selflessness, how well we play together as a unit in all three phases of the game, and really our culture and our next man in mentality that. Chase went down, KP was hurt, and out for a foreseeable time with the injury, and Jared went in, and no one, a term we use, don't flinch, and nobody flinched. He went in, had some great carries, had a nice long run called back because of a hold on the drive prior to that, and then ultimately on that draw play found a way to sneak in the corner of the end zone there and give us a game-winning touchdown. So I was very happy for Jared because. As we preach to our guys all the time, as a second or third teamer, you're one or two plays away, and when he got his opportunity, he rose to the occasion.
Another guy, filling that, next man up role is Jonathan Lumley. What did you assess out of his performance?
No, these four freshman receivers have been, have improved, have made incremental improvements throughout the season, and to finish the last half of the season, a majority of the game with, four true freshmen on the field between Jordan, the two little guys inside, Austin and Corey, and then Lumley, and then, having, Ben Johnson do a good job when we lost Robbie Cantelli. I think, two huge touchdown catches by Jonathan, another long pass down the field. Jordan Allen had another down the field catch, and the two young guys continue to be able to make people miss in space. So, I've played, throughout my career, I've had one freshman receiver play, maybe two freshman receiver play, but to have four in the same season is a bit unprecedented, and I'm incredibly proud of the way they've performed and how Coach Dupuis has done with those guys getting ready to play.
So we're going to bring you back to take a look ahead to your FCS playoff matchup with Chattanooga in the first round coming up on Saturday. But let's take a few moments to look back at the regular season as a whole now as we move into the playoffs. So start off with this bye week. How important was it for your guys to not have one all the way through? And we've documented how tough that's been throughout the year. Did it come almost at the right time, though, after all the struggles of not having the bye week? Now you get that extra week of rest going into such a tough matchup?
I don't think it was at the right time. It was at the necessary time, really, because there was no alternative. But in terms of how the scenario played out and us having a first-round game and, us, running the gauntlet and, having to play 11 weeks in a row on top of our preseason camp, that we didn't even practice last week. We gave the guys off, and they got a couple lifts in, they got a couple runs in, but we said the big deal was to recharge mentally and rehab physically, because it would have been, to me, a law of diminishing returns if we go out there and start trying to practice with guys that are banged up. So we feel good about the rehab process. We feel good about getting back out on the field on Tuesday with a squad as healthy as we've been in quite some time, aside from the guys who were out with season-ending injuries.
Any extra motivation in your seeding?
In our seeding? I don't think so. The fact we anticipated that we were going to be an at-large team,
right,
and because we felt we had earned that, so it was just a matter of who we were going to play. The only thing that you look at is I don't think that Chattanooga was certainly, as you're kind of sitting there and mapping through all the different scenarios and the alleged regionalism of the first round games, the quote 400-mile rule.
Yeah.
You look at some of those things, but certainly Chattanooga was not a team that was on our radar, and I'm sure they are saying the same. But the unique thing in this, it'll be the second year in a row that if we're fortunate enough to get through the first round game, that we have to play the number one seed in the whole tournament. But ultimately, you're one of the best 24 teams in the country, and at this point, you're not going to play a bad football team. So, tee it up and let's go.
Mm-hmm. So this will be the third straight year that you guys get to the FCS playoffs. What did you see from the upperclassmen this year throughout the regular season that allowed that to happen with so much turnover this year?
I think they did a tremendous job of introducing our culture to the young guys and showing them the things, number one, by example, and number two, vocally, of what it takes for us to be a successful football program. And, as I've said to the coaches and our guys throughout the years, that when it becomes a culture that's self-perpetuating and that the coaches really don't have to stress to the young guys of what it takes to be successful, that they see it from the upperclassmen, and the kids that don't do it, fall in line pretty quickly because they understand that, what the expectation level is around here. And I think our limited number of seniors and our upperclassmen and our best players did a very good job, showing the young guys what it took to be successful.
And just finally to wrap things up here, looking back at this regular season, we're going to have two of your captains on, your defensive captains, George Dawson and Stephen Hodge. What did they mean to this defense in particular that, again, they lose so many guys as well, and you weren't sure what you'd get from Stephen after missing a whole year. How did those guys, mature as leaders to help this group on the defensive end?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many superlatives you can talk about with Stephen. I mean, he's a guy who's the inspirational and I won't say vocal leader, but leader by example of this team, and at times he does choose to talk if people listen, and for him to be able to, the story is really kind of unique and impressive, coming as an unrecruited walk-on, starting as a receiver, moving to safety, moving to linebacker, then becoming an All-American and Defensive Player of the Year. They don't write scripts like that, or they do, they get turned down. So to him, everything he's done is a testament to his work ethic, his ability, and his desire to be a great player, and he's done it throughout the season. And obviously George, has played progressively better football as the season's gone on, the ability to create turnovers, and those two kind of complement each other in their leadership styles, where Stephen's a more reserved guy and leads through example, and George is a fiery guy, get guys pumped up and get them going. So I think they feed off of each other well.
Matt Morrow with Christian O'Hara taking a look back at the Georgetown game and the 2015 regular season with Fordham football head coach Joe Moorhead. We're going to take a look at what's coming up next, your FCS playoff first-round matchup with Chattanooga in just a little bit, but that's after. We're going to go X's and O's with Coach Briner and Inside the Huddle with Stephen Hodge and George Dawson. Time to go inside the X's and O's as we chat with co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Andrew Briner, Matt Morrow, Christian O'Hara. Pleased to be joined by Coach Briner. Coach, thanks for joining us this week in Applebee's.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me again. Enjoy coming on.
So we got the chance to speak a little bit about and review the entire 2015 regular season with Coach Moorhead. So let's do that with you from the offensive side for a little bit. And let's start with Kevin Anderson, because conversations that we've had with you and with everybody on this staff, it's, at times you forget that this guy is a first-year starting quarterback, but when you look at the numbers, are these numbers that you guys thought were possible to start this season?
Yeah, I think they were. We knew that Kevin was a very talented football player. What he has shown is his ability to prepare each week, unlike any quarterback I've been around, and really come into every single Saturday feeling very confident, knowing what we are doing and how that matches up with the defense. And that was the unknown. He's got the physical talent, he's got the physical tools. Will he put them, and how will he put them to use? And it's really been his preparation, his maturity, and his leadership that have allowed those physical talents that he has to come out. So I knew he had the physical talent. What nobody could have honestly answered before the season was, how does he go through that grind of 11 games? But incredibly proud of him, and he's been a pleasure to work with.
What was he able to do before the season even started, that before he starts his first college game here at Fordham, he's named a captain by his teammates and one of the offensive leaders along with Garrick Mayweather? What was he able to do in the offseason to show not only do I have the talent, but I'll be able to lead you guys to success this year?
Well, I think first and foremost he has an infectious personality, and he goes above and beyond in interacting with every one of his teammates. He's a guy that, and I think what makes his team special, to be honest with you, is there's no egos here. Whether you're a guy like Chase Edmonds that's obviously, decorated and accomplished, or a guy like Kevin Anderson coming in for his first year as a starter, there's no egos. They are very much a group, and I think Kevin is one of those guys that helps, the cohesion of that group just because of his personality. And then, people look at the way he works, and nobody puts in more time. There's lots of guys that probably put in the same amount of time, but nobody puts in more time than Kevin, whether it's extra physical reps or extra mental reps or studying and things like that. So I think he earned his teammates' respect by the way he went about his business through spring ball and fall camp.
Coach, coming into the year, obviously it was well documented, a lot of turnover, and I find it symbolic how the first snap was, the fumble on the read option.
It's funny now.
Yeah, isn't it? Right now. It wasn't then, no. But, and then, guys go down, you have so many, guys, and then the last touchdown scored was by Brevard. And so can you kind of just speak to the progression of this whole season and the progression of the offense as a whole?
Yeah, it's like you said, the start and the end.
Right.
You probably couldn't have. If you would have told me before the season that's how it was going to go,
Right.
I wouldn't have taken that bet. But no, and I just heard Coach Moorhead, speaking to the same thing. It's a it's a testament to the culture, and this goes back. This isn't this year. This is going back to last year, where it's Wednesday before Colgate, and the trainer calls me and says your quarterback has appendicitis, and nobody flinches, and
Right.
it truly is the next man. I think it speaks to the quality of student athletes that we recruit. I also think it speaks to the way we prepare as a staff and as the players together, that everybody knows what their job is. It's our job to bring players onto this campus that are capable of winning football games, and when they get the opportunity, they go in and do it. But and kind of tracking back to my previous answer, this offense and this team has a special feel about it. There's a chemistry that we haven't had here before, a true everybody's in it together, and people are pulling the rope in the same direction, and I think when somebody goes down, regardless of position, regardless of what side of the ball, guys are there to support, and we just keep going.
I think one area where that's especially true for you guys is the wide receiving core. And I asked you earlier in the year, is there any friendly competition about these guys, or all these freshmen come in and 4 of them have had starts, and I'm going to be the guy, I'm going to be you this week, and you told me no, they really do just want to see each guy have success every week.
Yeah, it's neat. They're a neat group. I know Coach Dupuis has kind of referenced the Fab Five, back in the day at Michigan, the basketball players, that these guys kind of look at themselves truly as a group, and they pull for each other and they push each other in practice, and I think there's some friendly. I don't even know if it's competition, but I think it's the way that they push each other to get the most out of themselves, and in turn the whole group. But the last time I was on here, we were talking about Ben Johnson versus Holy Cross and what a great game he had. So it's not just the freshmen, but this group certainly, they're talented, they're fun to work with. One thing I was proud of was last week we got together. It was a bye week, and we didn't have practice, but we got together last Tuesday or Wednesday and just did a throwing session to just make sure we didn't accumulate too much rust. And the way all the receivers and the quarterbacks and the tight ends just came out there, and they were happy to be back to work. And the way they went about it told me a lot about who, what this group is about and who they are. They like working with each other every single day.
Coach, unsung heroes, guys like Faison Odom, Garrick Mayweather, Ben Johnson. How important is it to have those guys on the offense where, you didn't have too many guys with playing experiences? Garrick really the only one.
True.
Can you just speak about that?
Yeah, I think, it's been a great blend of guys that, when you look at a Garrick Mayweather or a Chase Edmonds or an Anthony Coyle who have started games here when we won the Patriot League Championship. And then you had guys that knew what our culture was about, knew what the expectations were. When you look at guys like Ben Johnson and Faison Odom, and then you add to that a bunch of guys that don't know that they don't know, but they knew who to look to, and whether it was guys that were accomplished or guys that had just been here waiting in the wings, there was no, hey, how are things done here? It was very clear, even because you got to remember when these guys show up as freshmen at the beginning of July, we as coaches aren't around. The people they have to look to are the upperclassmen, so it's a credit to our upperclassmen that the freshmen have figured it out as quick as they have, and to the culture and the chemistry of this team.
To take a look back at the final game of the regular season before this bye, the win against Georgetown, what did you see from the offensive perspective that said, okay, this is a group that's in the right spot right now heading into the playoffs?
Yeah, I wasn't pleased with how we started the game initially. We got to do a better job coming out of the gates firing. That's kind of been a hallmark of our offense, and we've lost that in the last several weeks, and that's something we got to correct going in. But once we got the ball rolling, it was score, score, score. So I liked how we fed off the momentum and built off the momentum. We hit a lull, and turnovers and not converting on third or fourth down will do that to you. But as we have done all year, we as an offense have a belief that every time we touch the ball, we're finishing in the end zone. And that obviously doesn't always happen, and we're disappointed when it doesn't, even more disappointed when we turn it over. But when it comes down to crunch time, we've done it time and time and time again, that when it was time to go get a score, regardless of who was in the game, we're the Fordham offense, and we're going to go score.
Kind of going back to Kevin here, he's had a couple of interceptions that were just unlucky, defensive linemen making good plays. And so, but he has a remarkable ability to kind of have amnesia, just throw it out. And, is that something that, stems from you as a coach or him as a kid, or a little bit of both?
Both, and more credit goes to him, no doubt. I think the biggest part of that is just, someone's personality. But
right.
no, it's something we talk about, that it has to bother you. You don't want you don't want it to not bother you. You don't want to have a quarterback without a conscience.
Right.
But you can't hold on to it, and you can't let one bad play affect you on the next play. So he does a good job of that, and yeah, some of them were just unlucky, and some of them were bad decisions. But what he does such a good job of is he rarely makes a mistake twice.
Right.
So as soon as we get it corrected, either on the headsets on game day or on film, afterwards, he does a good job of not repeating mistakes, and interceptions are going to happen,
right.
and you want to minimize them as much as you can, but we certainly don't want to dwell on them, and Kevin's personality just lends itself to that.
Moving ahead to look ahead to that first round matchup in the FCS playoffs with Chattanooga, from the defensive side for them and your guys' offense, what challenges do they present you?
I think the biggest challenge that I've seen so far on tape is, if I'm speaking honestly, in our league, we are the fastest team. As far as team speed goes, we every single week have that advantage.
Right.
This is a team that has great team speed on defense, from their defensive linemen to the linebackers to all the guys in the secondary. They can run. So our strength that we usually kind of count on isn't going to maybe be quite as much of a strength, negated. I think it'll be a good matchup. There's going to be a lot of good athletes on the football field when both sides of the ball are out there. But they're going to present a challenge because they're fast. They play physical. They run a very sound scheme. They're not going to beat themselves. They know how to take their scheme and match it up with whoever they're facing that week, which sounds a lot like our Fordham offense. We've talked before. We're not out there to trick anybody. We're going to line up and do what we do. So I think it'll be a fun matchup. I think it's two teams that really believe in what they do, and they're going to go out and execute it, and the team that executes it the best will win the football game.
Coach, you talk about how they rally to the football, very solid team speed. I asked Coach Moorhead about it earlier. Does that, you're going to run your base offense. You're going to run, the packages that got you here. Any wrinkles as a coach, if you see something on film, hey, maybe this will work, or things like that, little wrinkles that maybe that they haven't seen on film from you that you can use in a game like this, in a playoff game, elimination game.
Yeah, and that's not any different this week than it is any other week, to be honest with you. We're always going to have some wrinkle. You want to do that. They're preparing for your base stuff, and to me, really when it comes down to the end of the game, is which team executes their base offense or base defense against each other. But there are explosive plays to be had if we can find some looks that we feel like we can, show them something they haven't seen from us or haven't seen from somebody else. So, we'll take a long, hard look at the film and see if there's some wrinkles there. But at the end of the day, we got to make sure we're putting ourselves and our players in a position to be successful. We're not going to, do something that's outside of who we are. If it fits within what we do, then we'll take a look at it. But if it does, we're not going to line up and run the triple option like Citadel. I can tell you that. So,
lastly, moving into this playoff matchup, what can you as a coach take from your previous experiences in the postseason into this week?
The margin of error no longer exists. It doesn't. You're playing one of the other 23 best teams in the country. They have good players. Nobody got to the playoffs because they lucked into it.
Right.
And obviously with the draw that we got at Chattanooga, which is a team that's been ranked in the top 10, I think pretty much the whole season. They've had sustained success over the last couple of years, much like we have. But the margin of error is small, and their offense takes pride in the ability to run the football. I haven't seen a defense that hasn't had to play this or has only played this few snaps. They're only averaging being on the field 55 to 60 snaps a game. So their offense is going to control the ball. They're going to control the clock. They're going to try to shorten the game. And we as an offense must take advantage of every single possession. And again, 3 and outs aren't going to work. Turnovers aren't going to work. We're going to have to maximize each and every possession.
Matt Morrow with Christian O'Hara talking with co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Andrew Briner. Coach, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck this week.
Thanks,
all right, see you guys this weekend.
Yep.
All right.
All right, Matt Morrow back with Christian O'Hara. Time to go inside the huddle with 2 of the Fordham defensive captains this season, linebacker George Dawson and linebacker Stephen Hodge. Guys, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
All right, so we have got great things to talk about today because we are previewing your first-round playoff matchup with Chattanooga coming up on Saturday. But let's take a few minutes to look back. You guys had the bye week last week, and you finish off the regular season with a 7-point win over Georgetown down in D.C. So let's look at that game briefly. It's the final game of the regular season. You guys go in knowing that you're going to have to win that game to really keep the hopes alive for the playoffs. And if you win that game, the confidence was there from everybody, from you guys, the players, from the coaches, that if you took care of business against the Hoyas, you'd be in. So what was the mentality going into that game, and how did you feel during it about how the preparation and your mentality was paying off against that in that matchup against Georgetown?
I think the biggest thing for us throughout the week was knowing that we had to get the win. We had to do everything, like from a schematic standpoint and from a physical standpoint, to make sure that we were ready to go into the game. And I feel like our game plan was tight, and we had everything that we needed to do to go in to win the game. We just needed to go out and execute. So I feel like we were really prepared during the week, but we were focused on getting the win in a convincing manner to try to let the committee know, like, we're for real. We really want to show them what we could do in the playoffs. But, I mean, getting the win in and of itself is an accomplishment. So, I mean, just coming away with the win was big for us.
Yeah, I mean, for the seniors and this whole team, after the loss to Colgate, every game was do or die at that point. So if we lost one more, we knew there's no playoff shot. So kind of the same mentality for the last 2 games of the season, kind of what we had to do and get done.
One of the biggest plays of the first half of that game was your interception that you run back 55 yards for a touchdown. Let's take a quick listen to that one.
6:52 and counting down. New set of downs for the Hoyas. Their own 48. Looking over the middle of the field on first down. And that's an interception out of the hands of the receiver into the hands of Stephen Hodge. Going down the near right numbers to the 10. And he's got no one near him into the end zone for a touchdown.
So that play develops on a tip ball that you come up and grab. What's your mindset throughout that play once you see it come out of the receiver's hands and into your arms and you start running down the sideline?
Well, the coverage was pretty tight, almost a little too tight. So I was pretty sure there was going to be some pass interference there.
I wonder who that was.
I'm not going to say that close. I almost didn't even return. I was like, oh, this is pass interference. It just stopped. Yeah. I kind of took off, and I saw the quarterback there, and I was like, I cannot get hawked by a quarterback. So luckily, the guys laid some blocks for me, so got a touchdown. It was nice.
Yeah, Matt and I did see that. Maybe we didn't, but who knows? Steve, what did that mean for you, personally, kind of knowing that you've been through so much to kind of get back on the field, and what was it like making that play in that situation in a must-win game?
It was awesome. I mean, the feeling was great, and then I scored, and after I knew there was no foul in the play, I was like, oh my God, I scored a touchdown, and George was like, oh my God, it's like shake it up a little bit. So it was nice, though. It was nice.
Now, the defensive effort certainly came up big at the end of this game as well. They're able to come back and tie it, but talking with the coaches all season long, the next man up mentality and the don't flinch mentality, it showed itself a couple of times. On the offensive side, it was Jared Brevard who scores the winning touchdown. But on defense, one of your linebacking teammates, David Barletta, ends up being the guy who makes the big play. I'm sure for you, Steven, it's so great when you make a big play. And, George, you've made plenty. And we were talking about the Bucknell plays that you made the last time you were on. But what's the feeling when a teammate like David Barletta, who has been playing here for 4 years and has been behind guys like you, come up and make such a huge play to end that game?
Well, Dave's been through a lot in his time here with dealing with injuries and everything. But throughout the week, I mean, him and Nico split time all the time. So he practices and prepares like he's the number one middle linebacker. So I knew if he got in and got a chance to make a play, he was going to be ready and able to make the play. So seeing him get that was big. And I know it must have meant a lot to him to be able to come in and make a big play like that to change the game and win the game for us. So I was real happy for him when he got the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, we have two great middle linebackers. They kind of just both split time, which is great for the whole defense. But he's a great player. I mean, he's been through a lot, like Georgia said, with like his blood injuries and the ACLs. It's kind of like it's nice for him to finally get on the field and do something.
Guys, looking ahead here to Chattanooga, they have a great rushing attack, as you guys know, I'm sure. How excited are you, to get that opportunity to shut them down?
I mean, the biggest thing, I'm just excited to be in the playoffs and get the opportunity to play more football. And then going up against a good team is always something that gets me excited because I feel like it gives me another opportunity to show that we can play with better teams, not just teams in the Patriot League, but that we can actually compete on a national scale. So I'm just really excited to get to Saturday and get ready to go down there and play Chattanooga.
Same thing, pumped. I mean, it's great. It's a great rushing defense, and that's usually what we're pretty good at, stopping the run.
Right.
Most of the time, we've been good at that, but it's going to be fun. They're a great team. It's a fun stadium.
What can you guys take from the last two trips to the playoffs? The last 2 years, first round was here at home against Sacred Heart. So you get that home game, you get a home win to move to the second round. This year's a little different. You got to go on the road right off the bat. But what can you take from the last 2 years that can help you prepare mentally this week?
Just playing in the playoffs, like going up against teams that are better than teams that we play in conference, even some of the teams we played out of conference this year and in the previous years. Just being in the playoffs and know, like, the margin of error is a lot slimmer than it is during the regular season because during the regular season you play a game, you got another one the next week. If you don't win this game this Saturday, then there's not another game after that. So just having the feeling to know, like, playoffs is like really a do-or-die scenario. So just having the experience from playing in the playoffs the past 2 years should help us kind of get that across to the team and have everyone get on board and be as urgent as we know we need to be to pull this winner up.
Yeah, I mean, I just think preparing, like, my junior year is kind of like a new thing for us. We were, like, a ranked team for the first time in a while. It was all brand new. Then last year we were at the very upper class, like, mature team, so the kind of guys knew what was going on. Now it's a little different with a bunch of freshmen playing. We told them, like, to start the season, like, how fast the game was, like, compared to practice, and I think in the playoffs it's even more relevant. Like, the margin of error is so small and the game is so much faster, especially against a good team. They have to be ready to go, be prepped all week.
Guys, you talk about the margin for error is very razor thing. Is that, an approach and preparation that you kind of have to go through every rep, like you're on the field, every rep is probably maybe the last rep you'll get before you step out on that field?
Coach always harps on practice reps being game reps, so we try to approach every rep we get in practice with the intensity and the focus that we would need to make the play in the game. So, I mean, just being in the playoffs, you have to approach it differently than you would a regular season game. So, I mean, we've definitely got to turn up the focus and turn up the intensity this week in practice so that we'll be able to be ready to play on Saturday, especially coming off of a bye week.
Yeah, thankfully with that bye week, some nice rest while they played Florida State and got a little beat up. So see how it plays out.
Steven, this is for you because it's been well documented the struggle you had to go through just to get back on the field this year. You come back for your graduate season, and you were the preseason Patriot League Defensive Player coming into last year. You still get that honor this year, and then you lived up to it. You've had a fantastic season. Is this the way that you have envisioned, coming back this year and spending this final season?
I mean, I would have liked to win the Patriot League. That would have been a nice little icing on the cake. But I think that was kind of voted just as a respect thing. Not really. People were kind of apprehensive about what I could do on the field, so especially after my injury. So, I mean, it's just nice being here, being back playing with the guys like we won last year.
Do you ever envision that you could, get back to full strength, or was there any doubt in your mind?
I honestly did not.
Really?
Last April, I kind of like re-injured a little bit, my patella tendon. And I was like, that's probably my career.
Right.
And then, luckily over the summer, I kind of worked with some guys at Velocity and Vinny and the guys, and got it back going. Before the camp started, I was still a little nervous, but held up with some glue and string. So,
at what point of the season, if you ever got there, did you finally feel okay? I'm back to where I can be 100% confident and not have to worry? And does it make it that much more special to you that you had those doubts and you had those instances where, you know, I could be done, but you've gotten through this entire season?
Yeah, it was the first toss of Army when they ran that toss to the field. I was like, after I tackled him, I was like, I felt my knee. I'm like, all right, still in one piece. I'm ready to go. I'm back.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, so both of you were named captains coming into this year, and we've asked everyone every week about the freshmen. You guys have talked about the freshmen already, and you know there's so many seniors who graduate. You lose 30-plus guys, but now that you get to this point of the season, from your perspectives as captains, are these guys freshmen anymore? Are these sophomores who are coming in? Are they sophomores anymore? Are these guys who, you know, everyone has had enough experience where it doesn't matter what class it says on the stat sheet anymore?
I feel like once you get about halfway through a season, you can't use the freshman excuse anymore. Like, you've played enough games now. But they've done a great job since day one, being real mature and coming in and kind of buying into everything that we're about. And they've been playing really good football this year. So I feel like at this point in the season, there's no more, like, class rankings or whatever. But, like, we're just one team right now fighting for the same thing.
Yeah, I think George may have said during the season, like, at some point, but, like, he's like, no one cares if you're a freshman anymore. Like, it just matters winning and losing at this point. So we have to just get it done. Like, but they've done a great job of growing up pretty quickly because they kind of had to. They had no choice.
Right.
You mentioned, Stephen, that after the Bucknell game, or the Colgate loss, that, all right, every game is at this point a do or die. Was there any shift in mentality, or was that just, you know, that was the feeling all season long, but now, as you say, the margin of error is literally gone. You know, was there any shift after that game? Did you feel anything like that?
I don't want to say that we practice differently because I would like to think that we practice the same way every week for every team. But I guess like there was definitely a different sense of urgency during practice, a little more pep to everyone's step, kind of knowing that like these young guys were playing for the seniors, like they're playing to play with these guys for one more game, like to earn one more game, like Coach kept saying. So I guess there was a little difference in like the atmosphere of practice.
And lastly, for you guys coming into this matchup with Chattanooga, you got a whole week of practice coming up after the bye week last week. What's the biggest thing that you guys need to stress to the rest of the team and for yourselves to be mentally prepared this weekend?
Just to be more urgent. Like you said, it's the playoffs this time. If we don't win, then we won't be playing any more football. So the biggest thing is to come out really urgent and really focused this week and have our best week of the year and go down there and hopefully come away with a win.
Matt Morrow and Christian O'Hara here going inside the huddle with Fordham defensive captains, linebacker George Dawson and linebacker Stephen Hodge. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great week of practice. We'll see you in Tennessee.
Thanks for having us.
All right, time to take a look at what's coming up next. We bring back in Fordham football head coach Joe Moorhead. All right, Coach, we did a little bit of it before, but let's take a more in-depth look at your matchup this weekend with Chattanooga, and certainly not one that when we were trying to play it out ourselves, trying to figure out where you guys were going, that we expected either. So what things in the short amount of time that you've been able to look at Chattanooga have you seen and said, okay, this is what they're going to present to us next weekend?
Oh, they're a tremendous football program, and you know, you look at last year, they're the team that beat New Hampshire, you know, in the game after us, and you know, moved on very far in the playoffs last year. This year, they've been ranked in the top 10 a majority of the year. They lost their opening game to Jacksonville State, a close one, 23-20. Jacksonville State's been ranked one, currently ranked one, and you know, tripped up to Mercer, you know, 17-14 in the year, and then lost to Florida State last week. So they're a top 10 team. You know, they have an excellent quarterback, the head coach's son, who was a Peyton Award finalist last year, and he kind of makes them go offensively. Big, strong, physical offensive line. Derek Crane, the running back, does a fantastic job. And defensively, they don't do a ton of things, but the things they do extremely well. You know, big, fast, physical, athletic offensive line. You know, linebackers who can run side to side and guys who can cover on the back end. So, you know, like I said, it's one of the 24 best teams in the country. You know, there was some debate as to whether they deserve the bye or not to be one of the top 8 teams, and you know there probably was a legitimate case that they were, but you know they fell down to a first-round game, and you know it'll be a unique challenge heading down there to face a team that from the Southern Conference that we've never played. It's going to be fun.
Coach, in terms of preparation, you know you hear all the time, do what works, do what got you here. Is there anything you do differently, or you just do the same things you do every week in and week out?
I think it's a mix, you know, and any time we go into our game plan and you have the things that you hang your hat on and the things that you're going to do week after week because, you know, those are the things that you do well, but also you look at what they do and some of maybe their perceived deficiencies and things that you can do differently. You know, like New Hampshire last year, there were some things on offense, you know, formationally and, You know,
Right.
it's just little tweaks. It's not going to be any wholesale
Mm-hmm.
changes, but maybe a couple different things based off of what you see on film. But I would say, you know, you're essentially going in with your main package and making some tweaks, you know, based on what you see on film.
Leading up to the selection show this weekend, do you let the guys kind of do their own figuring out of where the team might go and who you might face, or do you try to stress, hey guys, all right, we don't know until we know, so don't even worry about it?
No,
because
I
obviously if that happened this week, it wouldn't have probably been what guys thought.
I think that's part of the fun of it. and we talked about that in a team meeting, you know, last week. For the past 2 years, it's been kind of like, we're going to go play Sacred Heart and then figure out who we're going to play after that in round 2. So I thought, you know, there was a little bit more intrigue, so to speak, relative to our first-round opponents. So, no, I think that's part of the fun of it. And, heck, I was doing it on Saturday night and had my iPad out, had all the, you know, conference standings, automatic qualifiers, was drawing up my 24 to see if I could figure out who it was going to be, and obviously I was dead wrong. So I felt like Joe Lenardi. It was awesome.
Coach, any doubt in your mind that you would receive an at-large bid? That you wouldn't receive an at-large bid?
99% sure. I mean, when you're not in the committee and you're not in the meetings, you know, there were some, you know, it's tough. And you look at who didn't make it. I guess you call it the first 4 out. You know, there were some teams that had legitimate resumes and probably some, you know, legitimate reasons to be in. But I mean, in terms of our resume and the things we did, you know, I didn't see how they could leave us out. So you know, you're never 100% sure, but I was as confident as I could be under the circumstances.
What are the things that, coming off the week of rest, and now you get the guys back for a week of practice leading up to this game, what are the things that you stress coming into this week of practice?
Now, we got to get cranked back up, quite honestly, and I want to say shake the rust off, but you know, we haven't had the pads on since the Georgetown game, and you know, we really haven't done anything as a team in terms of meetings or things like that. So you know, we're going to have great meetings tomorrow, and then, as we always talk about, you know, the 3 phases of victory are going to be preparation, effort, and execution. And if we want to have our biggest win of the season, we've got to have our best week of preparation. So anything else for us would be foolish to expect to, you know, not have a great week and then go down and play a tremendous opponent and expect to be able to compete and win. So the big thing to me is, you know, we got to have our best 3 days of practice throughout the season to have a chance to advance in a 2014 field.
Coach, they have a very solid rushing attack. You know, the passing game not so much. But do you anticipate bringing any more, you know, different types of pressure, stacking the box, or just sticking with what you guys do on defense?
I mean, I think it's got to be a mix, and it's not a situation where, you know, they're incapable of throwing the football.
Right.
They probably have 4 or 5 guys with 30 or more catches, and you know, that's part of the difficulty of defending a run-heavy offense, that you have to commit so many people to stopping the run that you're creating some matchups on the perimeter, either via matchup or coverage construct, that you're leaving some things open. So, you know, you have to be able to commit numbers to the box to stop the run, but at the same time be solid on the play action shots and the quick game and things down the field. So I can't say you just do one thing, but you got to be able to mix it up.
Last 2 years, you guys get the home games against Sacred Heart and win those first-round games and then have to go on the road and play tough opponents. This year, it's kind of a week fast-forwarded to right off the bat, you got to go on the road and play a tough opponent. Not that Sacred Heart wasn't, but you lose that luxury of having the first round here at home. So what can you take from the last 2 years of having to go on the road, having to play such tough opponents that you can use to your advantage this year?
Yeah, so what? We got to figure it out. So, I mean, there's no... You can't bemoan the fact that we're going to have to go on the road. It's, you know, obviously we play very well at home, and our record, you know, bears that out. But, you know, it's going to be a charter flight. We're heading into, you know, uncharted territories in a conference in a place we've never been before. But, you know, those are things that really, you say control the controllable. You know, we control our attitude, our effort, and our preparation. So, you know, it's just something that we're not going to have to, I don't say think about, but it's just a, you know, it's just part of the circumstance.
Well, I'm sure the guys are excited. I'm sure you're excited.
No,
we're excited.
We're fired
to
up.
go down there for it. So we can't wait for the weekend to get here. I'm sure you can't either. Fordham against Chattanooga in the first round of the FCS playoffs coming up this Saturday, 1 p.m. Coach, so thanks so much for joining us this week, and we'll see you next weekend in Tennessee.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen.
Always a pleasure. Thanks. Time to wrap things up now here on Monday Night Quarterback. Matt Morrow back with Christian O'Hara. And Christian, we've gotten to this point of the season. We're no longer in the regular season. Chattanooga is the next opponent on Fordham's schedule. wasn't there to start the year. It only got there this weekend with the selection show. We've made it to the first round of the FCS playoffs. I'm excited to go down there. I'm sure you're excited. The team is excited. What needs to happen this week for Fordham, preparation-wise, throughout the week to get to this game on Saturday?
I think they need to, elevate kind of everything they do this week. Practice reps, watching film, noticing things that Chattanooga does well, and maybe identifying weaknesses that they can exploit on both sides of the ball. And I think one thing that Fordham needs to hone in on is special teams. Special teams in these type of playoff games can win you or lose you a football game. I think that all three phases of the game need to be razor sharp. And because the margin of error is so thin in these type of single elimination playoff games, so everybody needs to elevate their play, elevate their level of preparation, and if they do that, it'll give them a good shot to win on Sunday on the road. On Saturday.
Well, it's going to be a great matchup to watch. Fordham has made it to the playoffs the last 2 seasons, year number 3 in a row. This time they got to go on the road in the first round, but as the coaching staff says, control the controllable. That's what they'll do. They'll practice all week leading up to Saturday's matchup with Chattanooga. That's going to do it for this week's edition of Monday Night Quarterback. Thanks to head coach Joe Moorhead, co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Andrew Briner, and linebackers George Dawson and Stephen Hodge. Next Monday, another edition of Monday Night Quarterback live from Applebee's. We'll look back at the Chattanooga game and hopefully look ahead to a second-round matchup in the FCS playoffs. We'll have our X's and O's segment with one of the coaches and Inside the Huddle with some of the big players from the Chattanooga game. Don't forget to tune in WFUV's coverage of Fordham football as the Rams take on Chattanooga this Saturday in the first round of the FCS playoffs. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m. with the one-on-one pregame report live at 12:50 on 90.7 FM, WFUV.org, and WFUVSports.org. Until then, for Christian O'Hara, producer Sabrina Sidden, and engineer Brendan Bowers, this is Matt Morrow. Have a great week, everybody. Monday Night Quarterback is a presentation of WFUV Sports.